Is this IGN? What is this? Oh.
So we started with a couple of classes, and we had some really cool ideas for class mechanics that would be specific to those classes. And it proved to be very compelling, not just in terms of the gameplay of the class, but also, you know, if you're playing a barbarian and then maybe you're grouped up with a sorcerer.
You know what I'm actually very excited about too? I can play this on my Steam Deck. This is gonna be a nighttime game. Feels good, man.
And the sorceress is using her class mechanic.
Feels
it
good.
Really, you look at that and you're like, oh, well, there's lots of really interesting gameplay there that I could check out, you know, in the future, maybe on a future season or something like that. And so we really wanted the classes to shine in their own ways and differentiate from each other. And then also it goes back to that aspect of choice. Like when we look at the class mechanics, we try to design them in ways that increase the number of meaningful choices and ways that you can customize your character. So if you look at the Necromancer, for example, right, the Book of the Dead allows for players who, you know, the Necromancer is a core part of Diablo as a franchise, right? It's this really cool summoner class.
Is there a quarterly
really
update due?
I
swear it's been a while.
Approach monsters in a totally different way with all of your minions like getting in the way of projectiles, tanking monsters. You get this really cool fantasy of being this sort of general of the dead. But there are lots of different ways that people have played Necromancers in the franchise, right? You've got people who enjoyed playing Necromancers in Diablo 2, where they're kind of overseeing the battlefield and their minions are doing all of the combat. You've got the more action-packed Necromancer of Diablo 3, where you're like really sort of commanding your minions more directly.
I will say, if you look at Diablo 3's abilities, the bar looks like a more active bar to click compared to Diablo 4's. It doesn't look like the abilities, I don't know. They look like passive abilities. They look like they're not like crazy to click in a way. I don't know how to describe it. Whereas these look like they're more active in like how you press the buttons. I lost where we were, right here.
Where you're like really sort of commanding your minions more directly. And you've got players as well who want to play this sort of dark caster fantasy, but aren't necessarily attached
Necro's
to the
cool,
army
but
aspect of it,
nah.
even though that's a big draw of the Necromancer.
Too many minions.
Corpse explosion is cool, just in general.
Absolutely, yeah. And who doesn't want to explode corpses, right? So when you look at the class mechanics, we designed Book of the Dead to allow players to customize their Necromancer.
I really hope this is placeholder, because that is the worst. Defenders, skirmishers, reapers. I'm surprised, man. I feel like Blizzard doesn't show placeholder shit. No, I mean, now I'm wrong, actually. I guess they do if you play like WoW betas, right? But this, I feel like, is not like they said it is. Yeah, it must be. This is old anyways, this footage that they're showing, that they're talking over.
To speak to that.
Says not final. No shit, motherfucker.
Class fantasy.
Bro,
so you can do things like sacrifice.
Guys, I swear to God, this is the first. I don't understand anymore.
Like, I really want to have a golem, but I don't want to have skeletons. I want to have skeletons, but not a golem. I want to have the biggest army.
I don't even care.
And there are trade-offs and interesting choices that can be made all through that.
And it's interesting that it's like, to me, it's around adding depth without trying to add too much complexity. You know, you look at the sorceress one with the enchantment system. It's incredibly powerful to have the ability for different skills fire based on what you're doing, whether it's like you're bringing down a blizzard every 10 seconds or certain lightning is coming out of you or those sorts of things, but they're kind of, in a way, a passive ability. I don't have to trigger it. It's triggering based on either a condition or based on time. And similar to the Necromancer's Book of the Dead is allowing you to customize and configure your army. It's not adding complexity necessarily to, oh, I have to worry about how I control differently. And so it makes things richer and more customizable, because now even if I'm a fire sorceress and you're a fire sorceress, the fact that what we put into our chance slots could make it very different on how we play and how we build upon that, and gives us access to like a couple more skills, which normally you'd be limited by your skill bar. And so that notion of that each class has a way to go deeper into the class fantasy and do it in a way that doesn't mean like, oh, now I have 6 more buttons I have to press or whatever. Like, it keeps it deep and interesting and custom without overwhelming you.
I think
The
I'll
skill
play a
trees have
barbarian. Barbarian or a
dramatically
rogue?
over the course of development, I would say.
We're on number 4?
Many iterations. And a lot of it has come, one of our strategies here has
looks
been
nice.
to like really share as much as we can with the fans as often as we can. So when we've gone out with and talked about like, here's where our skill trees are in our, in various like our log updates and like when we go to show off the game. And we've gotten lots of feedback like, I want to have more choices, or I want to have lots of other options. And so out of that have come like a number of revisions to the skill tree, both for making it clear
PoE
how you
should
can
get
progress
paid
through
by
it,
grinding
making
gear
it
at
work
this
for new
point.
players, and
The fact that you
ways
don't get
to
paid
increase
is
the
sad.
depth. And that's where we get into the Paragon system, which comes online.
I feel bad for you.
As you level up and get into the higher levels. And we've really tried to hit that sweet spot where we're providing all of the opportunity for choice, while not overwhelming players who, are looking at this big map of skills and asking where to start, right?
I love theory crafting. Like that's one of the things that draws me to these types of games is, how do I make a build? How do I set up skills? How do I make things work together? And you want a lot of depth there so that you have a lot of choice, so we're not just making the same build all the time. Like, we're both fire sorcerers, and we know exactly what skills we're using, and so you want enough choice there that you can kind of customize it, make it feel unique to yourself, but not, there's games where you would go into it and you go like, oh, that's way too complicated. Just go look up a website, tell me what I have to put in. I'll print, the old days, and I'm old enough, I used to print it out and bring it to my thing and go like, okay, put a node here, put a node there, and I was just making somebody else's build because the way you made a build was so complicated. I couldn't feel like I could own the theory crafting, and that's, I think, a line that we've been walking, is trying to make sure that you have
I'm still gonna
lots of
find a
choices,
build
both
online.
active and passive skills, but is
There's
still
always
sort
someone
of
who will do it
rockable, that
better
you can
because
go
they're
and
way
theory
more
craft and you can still
hardcore.
create your own build. And I think as a player, like when I first came to the D4 skill tree, I felt that notion of that, what I talked about with the
Like, you
equation.
can fucking make your own, but there's gonna be a
I really
guy
feel
who's
the
like,
D2
bro, I
skill
did
tree,
the
that
math.
notion of
This is
inherited.
way better to put
There's an
points
inheritance
into.
there from skill to skill, that you can take certain skills that impact other skills, and so you can kind of build on top of them the way that you used to be able to do in D2. And so I think that's really that notion of that, the richness of the progression that was in D2. I feel that richness in D4.
You talked about skills, connecting to other skills and building off of them. That's another area where we've gone through a lot of iteration, right, to make those connections clear. Because you don't have the connection where, a skill is literally below this other skill and you must take 1 point in this and then that you saw in D2. But you have all of these sort of natural connections between things like the skill causes bleeding and this skill benefits from bleeding. And so we've built this skill tag system. We've authored this ability to search the skill tags so you can highlight nodes that are related to that, and so you can sort of see how these things are interconnected, and it sort of assists the player in like, oh, there's some really cool interactions here to check out.
Yeah, give me all the skills that have bleeding in it, or would benefit bleeding, and then you go, oh, okay, I didn't know that one was going to help.
Oh, okay. I wonder how, like,
So
what
you
build
can
on the
respec
friends
point
and
by
family
point.
they're
You
working
can
on, or playing on.
directly in the skill tree for gold, and that gold cost ramps up at some rate as you level up. So as you more clearly define your build and like get more things that are associated with it and supporting it, it becomes a little bit more expensive to respec, but still doable. So those choices have meaning. And at the early part of the game, it's very, very inexpensive, very small gold cost. So you feel like, oh, like I'm gonna try this skill. Like, oh, I didn't like that skill. I'm gonna try this skill. Or like, oh, that skill looks exciting. Let me try this, right? And you can go back and forth really freely. And you can also do full respec at any point as well. So you know, a lot of as you build out the skill tree, you have things that unlock based on other nodes that you've chosen. So we spent some time making that as smooth as possible, and that's where we ended up in the skill tree itself. Like you know, press one button to buy a skill and the other button to respawn that skill. So you really are just in that tree, like adjusting where all your points are, and you don't have to like jump out and go to some other menu.
That's one of the things that's really different between D3 and D4 is like D3, once you get to a certain place, the difference between one build, I gotta go change my
is this
clothes.
the console UI?
You know, because you're really focused on being set-based or very equipment-based, so that your build is kind of defined by your equipment more than anything else. So you're like, oh, I want to change from fire to ice, let me go change my clothes real quick, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's a very clear way of doing it, the kind of paper doll model, but
yeah,
one of the
D3
goals
is
of
so
design goals,
bright
not to
compared
speak
to
for Joe, but like one of the
D4.
design goals is really to make your build feel inherent to your character. And that's one of the things about the gold cost going up over time is that basically there's going to be a point in time where
D4 is definitely grittier.
I'll make up a number, but like say at level 50, there's going to be a point in time where you go like, oh, I would like to be a different barbarian, but it's too expensive to undo everything I've done. It's actually better for me to roll another barbarian and start a new one and go fresh. And we wanted that notion that like with each level you progress down a character, you're kind of becoming more and more attached to it and getting more and more sort of settled with it, so that you're not just going, okay, I'm level 65 and now I'm just going to change my clothes and become a completely different barbarian, you know. So cheap in the beginning, so lots of experimentation. Do I like fire? Do I like ice? Do I like lightning? Yes, no, turn it off. And I also love the fact that you can get skills through equipment, that you can access the skills before maybe you would even be able to from a level perspective, and go, oh, I picked up this skill on my sword or my boots, and I'm going to go try it out and see if I like it or not. So I love that ability to go in and buy a skill and
I love
feel
that
no
world
regret
boss.
and
He's
paying for
sick.
it with in-game gold to get rid of it. But then, wow, once you get up there, you're level 90, you're going like, I think I'm just going to, I think I'm not going to try to spend a million, whatever it's going to be to undo all these skills. So I love that sort of sense of, I don't know, hardening cement. It's like over time, there's a sense of permanence that starts to happen the further deeper you go into that character.
I wonder if these bosses are kind of like they spawn at certain times and you gotta go port to the area or something and kill them. I don't know how that works. It seems like they're opening up a lot more about the game now. Hopefully we get a complete date for release soon, and hopefully Activision doesn't mess this up. True. Literally everything you said about Necromancer class customization, you could already do in D2. You want just a golem or a golem and skeleton. That's exactly what the skill tree did in D2. Or you could roll Bone Spear, Corpse Explosion, and have a dark magic build without any pets. Again, just like you said in the video, maybe I missed something, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but this doesn't seem like anything new or revolutionary. Yeah, can't wait to co-op the hell out of this game. I kind of wish there was something of like a Holy Knight class too. This game needs a paladin on launch. I feel like with the way they talk about choices for every class, this is literally a talking point for every game. The past, like, every RPG, the past, like, 5 years, they talk about player choice or whatever the fuck. It's kind of just, like, kind of fluffy in their way of just, like, explaining the system. It doesn't seem like it is revolutionary, but, I mean, for an RPG, it seems nice enough. Testing and live service plans? What is this?
I think it's really interesting, like one of the things coming to Blizzard and coming to the Diablo team and seeing a lot of the kind of way that they do testing. There's a phrase that's used a lot around soup tasting, which is this notion of, oh, we're going to put it together, but you always have to taste the soup, and does it need more salt? Does it need more flavor? Did we do too much of something or not enough of another?
You can't eat this soup standing up, your knees buckle.
And this is probably, I've been making games for like 22 years now, and this D4 is the game that I felt like has been more holistically tested than any other game I've been a part of, because it's really part of the philosophy.
I forgot,
of
is this the
Blizzard
rogue with the bow?
Of this team in particular, to be able to go in and be
There's
able to
no
go,
ranger, the rogue is the bow
from
archer.
beginning to end, let's play. And so whether that's, the whole team is getting the ability to bring the full game at home over Christmas to play it and give feedback. And then the notion of we're going to allow the entire company at Blizzard to go and play it and give feedback. And now we're going to allow all of ABK to go play it and give feedback. And we just went through Friends and Family, which is all of ABK plus their friends and family to go play it and give feedback on the full game. And now we're going into endgame beta, which is going to be even more, because we went out and looked at who are people who are engaging with the previous Diablo games and sort of the rich endgame systems that are there, and we want to hear what they think of D4. And then we're going to be going into open beta, next year, where we're going to be, trying to crush our servers and trying to get as much feedback as we can there. And so all along, as part of this
they're going to open beta crush servers just to still get crushed at launch.
And user research, and we're doing surveys and bringing people in for user testing. So a lot of this iteration is not just us sitting alone in our offices coming up with a new idea. It's born out of feedback from the blogs, feedback from people playing, whether it be on the team, to the company, to friends and family, to there's just a lot of inputs into it. And it's really, I think you can see that if you've been part of it over the last few years, you can see that iteration and refinement happen because of those tests.
Yeah, you mentioned endgame beta. This is one of the first times that we've tested, like how to test specifically for the end game. And the reason
wait, they didn't do this for D3?
Is because we've talked about how Diablo 4 is a live service, how we have really exciting things to come with seasons, how they're going to be really big and crunchy and meaningful. So it's really important not just to support that, but also because we know that we have so many players who enjoy playing Diablo for way past the campaign.
I totally forgot there's a druid in this game.
And so
that actually might be sick to play.
To test the end game systems before we get to launch, and then make adjustments. You were talking about players getting through D2R very quickly. Yeah. So this will give us an opportunity to sort of test where we are with that early enough before release that we can make some small adjustments to end game systems and really make sure
show
that
the
when,
video. We don't care about the devs talking. I kind of care. I'm curious.
The campaign. There's some.
We've already seen the gameplay. This is all old footage.
Some testing against it and had some adjustments made, so they're not beta testing it at launch.
Yeah, I mean, Diablo is a systems game, right? That's what we talk about. Like, look at my experience with D3. I played D3 for hundreds of hours, literally hundreds of hours, and I've played the campaign in D3 probably twice.
Stay a while and listen.
And so that notion of yeah, it has to be a kick-ass campaign. You have to have great context and great story, know what it is, why the world is the way it is, and set it all up. But you're unleashing players after they complete the campaign.
I wonder how Diablo actually fits into this story, or is it all Lilith?
And so in the past, we really haven't had that opportunity for people just to go into it and say, okay, this is the starting point, because this is certainly not the end. This is not where, this is the beginning of where this live service becomes, and that 1,000 hours starts, not where it ends. And so, but we want it to feel rich, because we're going to have seasons, and you're going to have seasons that are going to change up the game. And so, there'll be lots of stuff to add incrementally as we go. But we want to know that when that person finishes the campaign, that they immediately have something really cool to go and do and start to engage with the system.
The campaign in these games is the tutorial.
To beat that level 100 boss.
It's always fun, watching the cutscenes, though.
We've been
because they're
trying to be a little cagey, just because
nice.
One of the things that we're still working through is when you work on a live service, the notion of what you want and when you want it, the pressure starts to change. Because when you're building a game like we are now, there's really a lot of focus is on what you want, what's the right game and how do we get the right quality and all the features that we want to have. And so,
wait, the guy on the right
on making sure we can get what
is
we
known
want,
for overseeing the development of Gears of War.
But when you start that train of now,
how many Gears of Wars was he over?
Seasons where you, I think, succeed on players' minds is having consistency to know. Oh, every 3 months there's.
He did look familiar.
And so if you go well, my ambition is I want to do a little more here, so it's actually going to be 3 months and 3 weeks, and then you start to lose that promise to the
yeah,
player.
Because they kind of fell off.
Or how to think about it, and so our intention
I
is
guess
to
the
have
story didn't
a
fall
heartbeat,
off for
is to have
Gears.
a
They
cadence of
definitely kept
content that
pushing the
players
tech.
can rely on and knows, both from a season perspective and from an expansion perspective. And so that's something we're working towards. So as we, we're still in the finishing touches of development, and we're still working through that. How do you build a season to ensure that you can deliver it in a timely way with the right scope and quality? That's why you're hearing a little softer language and saying it's definitely every 3 months and da 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 da. But I think when you look at historically what has happened, like those sorts of things is generally quarterly seasons is where it feels good from a Diablo perspective. And so I would say like up to 4, but we're
Oh, wait,
trying to allow
actually, this
ourselves a
would
little
be-
leeway, especially coming the transition from shipping a game to transitioning into a live service is one of the hardest transitions, I think, because you have a team that's just come off of shipping a game. There's an immediate demand for making sure that you're ahead of the game for live.
Yeah, the next
for
one
more
is in
content that's
December.
ready to go, and there's always this pressure to pull from that content, those people to come and work on the main game. It's like, why are you over there? I could use you over here. And so that transition from game to service is a really tricky part of that development. And so that's kind of why you hear a little bit of softer language until we get through that transition, and then that language will harden quite a bit.
The design of D3 seasons is certainly a foundational element for us here. One of the really cool things about D3 seasons is that you get a fresh start with every season. You get that opportunity to try, we're talking about how different all the classes are. You get to try a different class or try a different build per class and try it in an environment where there are changes to the meta or other changes. And where we see that going with Diablo IV is not just changes that we can do. Rod spoke about, having a team of people who are working on that. So it's not just changes that we can do.
Sometimes I like just
to the
sticking
meta,
with
but
my
also
main.
additional features.
That's the
that
only
can
thing
come
about
in,
seasonal shit.
with seasons and really making them
This game seems like there's more like worldly things to do as
change
well.
up the gameplay of Diablo in meaningful ways and exciting ways, and having exciting new things to check out every time. So.
Yeah, what I love about seasons too is it allows you to test things and try things. And so if something's working, as opposed to, oh, we're only delivering a game every X years, and so you don't have that ability to sort of refine and iterate over time. And so we can try a thing in seasons and go, hey, what do we think about this? And people go, oh, this is my new favorite thing in game, and we're like, oh, really? Okay, well, we're going to keep it now, and we're going to go and do something else. Or, oh, we can refine things that maybe, it just allows us to play a little bit more. But I love, what I think brings a lot of people back for D3 is that fresh start that Joe talked about, that notion of, oh, you've changed the meta, and I want to kind of go and experience that progression again, but maybe as a different class or with the same class with a different build, because there's new skills.
That's crazy. It's been 10 years
new ways to experience
since
the
Diablo
game, and I
3.
think that's going to be a big part of our season, sort of thinking.
I'll never forget the launch
okay,
on
how can I
Twitch.
come back and revisit this and play it in a different way, in a different class with new features and new content. Because where we're at right now is we're moments away from endgame beta going, and I think that's.
Oh, endgame
again,
beta
Joe
is
talked
now
about earlier,
live.
That's the first time that we're really doing this kind of a test, and it's part of this soup tasting. It's part of that. Do we need more salt? Do we need more pepper? Kind of thing.
All right, give me a taste. Oh, God, I gotta sit down.
But we're feeling really good coming off of all the other tests that we've had. Again, we've had the ability for people.
Oh yeah, they only invited people who had a shit ton of hours in D3.
And that's that. But one of the things that's hard to capture is when you think about endgame, when we talk about people who play for hundreds, if not thousands of hours in the game, it's really hard to get that kind of testing, because you get, okay,
this area looks new. I don't think they've shown this area.
Weekends, or you can play for a couple weeks, and you're not necessarily putting in 1,000 hours or whatever, right? And so we wanted to have a time to just soak in that experience. Okay, there's no campaign for you. You're just all you have are the things that'll be available to you in endgame, whether it be Nightmare Dungeons or Helltide or PvP or the Whisper bounty system. These are things that we want to make sure can really hold up for players that once they finish the campaign. And that's a really exciting place to be. Like I said, to have a game that's been playable from prologue to epilogue for so long is really different for me. It's really refreshing, and it's really been about how we continue to polish and bring it up and bring it up and
Yeah,
bring it up.
Gears
and
of
find
War,
those
you're done with
iterations.
the
And
story.
It's been also really interesting that
Go
with
to the
philosophy of
multiplayer.
Diablo team to be able to talk to players quarterly. Historically, I haven't done that. That's not something we've done. Is sort of brought them along on the journey. And testing has tended to be like, here's a multiplayer beta for some weekend. It hasn't been, hey, we're going to get beta testing on the whole game.
I don't think it's a bad thing that he's the game director of Diablo 4.
So that's really been informative from a design perspective.
Like Gears of
That's
War
kind
was a
where
successful
our big push is
franchise.
now, like we feel good about where we are with the campaign. A lot of it is implemented. A lot of VOs
Even if the
implemented.
games
We're
kind of
sort finishing
started
up
getting
the
a little
cinematic part of
dull,
the story.
I think they were still developed
We're
well.
honing in on making sure the end game is where it is. We're making sure that we have things in place that we've already started, season 1 work, and those sorts of things. So we can be prepared for when the players finish, that they're ready to be able to, have more there waiting for them when they.
The guy on the left is director.
And the first season starts. So I don't know. Is there like feeling good right now, honestly?
I think that's a great summary. I mean, it's a very exciting time for Diablo 4 and it's an exciting time for the franchise overall.
This game's definitely coming out next year. Yeah, this shit's definitely coming out next year. With the way they're ramping up and everything, for sure. Alright, yo, last video.
By 3
It's confirmed next year. Yeah, with all the betas and all this shit, for sure.
we call thee home.
When we set out to build Diablo 4, we knew that there were elements of all of our past games that we wanted to include. And with regard to the darkness specifically, we felt that a lot of
The team did
elements
research
in
at
Diablo
satanic
2
temples,
spoke to that in a way that was really
showing
sort
the
of,
sermons.
the essence of the franchise, and we wanted to capture that again with Diablo 4. So in terms of the tone of the events that take place in the game, our quests, our story, in terms of the literal amount of light in dungeons in many cases, with our PBR system, lighting system, which gives realistic lighting, we've gone through a lot of work to make the darkness feel present and set the tone and mood for what's going on, while still making the combat clear in combat spaces, which is requires a lot of careful tuning and work. So from the words that you see and the voices that you hear, to the tone of the content that you're playing, to the stakes in the world, to the darkness that you're seeing in terms of the color tones, we've really tried to recapture what is great about the sort of sense of being in the world of Sanctuary with D4.
I think a big part of it, when you think about you go back to the history of what Diablo 1 and 2 were, and the sort of like, especially 1 was like this notion of it was a kind of a cult classic, kind of niche game.
Complete free over the internet.
Forbidden game you shouldn't necessarily play, or you weren't
Fucking
allowed to play
AOL.
from your parents. And as you look at the evolution of the franchise from 1 to 2 to 3 and becoming a little bit more mainstream, where Diablo 3 I think is probably the most mainstream version of the Diablo games, that idea that now in today's day and age that darkness or that tone, that maturity is actually mainstream now. When you look at The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Sons of Anarchy, like it's no longer this forbidden thing you have to play, not let your parents know you're playing it or whatever. And so I think this really gave us an opportunity to go back and revisit what was core. Like I was sort of, whenever I try to, try to think of it, like the pithy way to go, like what's D4? And because of the way that the team has brought such a reverence to the past of the franchise, as well as new innovations, I always sort of think of it as sort of an equation. To me, it's the dark tone of Diablo 1, meets the progression of Diablo 2, meets the visceral combat of Diablo 3, and with the new innovations of Diablo 4, with things like open world and those sort of, and
Yeah,
lot more
Druid's
choice
bear
in the
form looked
gameplay
kind of
and
sick.
in the game itself. And so to me, that it's that return to darkness, though I think it's a great way to talk about the franchise if you're familiar with the franchise. It speaks to the fact that darkness is mainstream and you can be that dark and popular now. But it's a
Classic
respect
move
for the
to hide a
past, and I
fart.
think it's an opportunity to reach a bunch of players who didn't have that opportunity 25 years ago to play D1.
Blessed Mother.
Shit. Yeah, I mean, shit, man. Origin story?
I was created to lead Omnics into war. But all I have ever wanted is a better life for my people. The fact that we exist is a miracle unto itself.
Oh, is he?
We have studied the ways of peace
Oh.
and harmony. We have meditated on the universe and our place within it. We have tried to coexist with humanity, but humanity is not interested in sharing their world. How many more Omnics should perish to fuel mankind's dreams?
He sounds cool.
Our race is only a single generation. Finite and dying all too quickly. We can find our own place, and we must. Join me, and together we will make a better future for all Omnics.
Okay. He looks kind. Wait, it's the same voice actor as Godric from there are in-game screenshots of him. Wait, so he's a tank with a staff. Are they official screenshots or what? Let me see here. It's kind of sick. I like what did Godric sound like again? And Godric voice lines, Elden Ring.
Mighty dragon,
Oh yeah, I hear it.
thou'rt a true born heir. Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well, a lowly tarnished,
Yeah, I hear it.
playing as a lord. I command thee, kneel!
Yeah, I hear that shit. End new season announcement. Reddit, look at Ramattra's in-game design. Let me see here. First look. So these aren't leaked? Alright. Honestly, I feel like Kiriko was underwhelming. I have no interest in playing her. She seems kind of annoying too. She's just like a fucking annoying ass. I don't like her voice line as well. She's like, come on. Wait, so I mean, I guess we'll see. So wait, he has two forms. He has two forms, and he has a staff. So he's a tank with a staff. This is making me want to play Overwatch. God damn it! This is just making me want to play Roadhog. But yeah, it is what it is. Alright, that's kind of cool, man. Click the arrows. Oh, that's why I didn't see the arrows. Oh. I zoomed in. Okay. Is this his ult form or something? Or he builds up to this form? Of course, they show Tracer getting f***ed. Dude, you know what, man? This is messed up. Of course they're gonna show Tracer. She's like the default... She's the lowest HP. Of course they're gonna show it. This looks like he can trap people in a cylinder. Oh my God, I think that's exactly what he can do. This is a trap, isn't it? It is. Yup. He can find a hero, and then if he yup. Oh no. Alright, yeah, he looks sick. His left shift is like an uppercut, and it looks like this is how he blocks or something. 600. That looks like the same move that was Tracer was in. He looks like he's kind of evil, or like he's turned because his people were murdered. He seems kind of like It's not an ult? Oh. Shift is to change forms. Oh. He's the leader of the null sector? Oh. Shit, I mean, he looks sick, dude.